as long as you try and you have certain level of intellect, and then you pay attention to what's happening in this world, it's actually not hard to make money at all. I say it's very hard for self-centered people to make money, and I'll tell you why in a second. But it's very difficult. So I got to a point where I was living the quote unquote dream, right? I remember I was 23 years old. I was single at the time. I had everything the man could want. I had money. I was driving a nice Mercedes.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another life-changing episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk with Alex Ramirez. As always, I have a special guest today. I'm very excited to talk to, learn from, and just get to dive deep into his story. Before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been leaving comments, reviews, likes on all the major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, and to those who have been watching on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. And I just want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some piece of information, some kind of value, some feeling, like an inspiration to go out and take action, I want to ask you to please share this with one friend, since this is how we grow, this is how we share our message, and this is how we're able to motivate, inspire, and bless other men out there to change their lives and become what I call a modern gentleman. And also, while you're doing that, obviously, subscribe, like, comment, right? 95% of you probably won't do that. Most people don't do that, never take the time to do that. But the 5% of you who do are the ones who make all the difference. And to you and to everyone, I just say thank you. And today, I have Daniel Kwak.
You're good, man. You're good.
Kwak, first immigrated to the United States with his family at the age of 5 due to a financial disadvantage in his upbringing. So due to a financial disadvantage in his upbringing at the age of 20, he had a negative amount of $187. I found myself there, man, multiple times.
Well, let's just call it what it is, man. I grew up extremely poor, and up until about age 20, I was very poor.
So he found himself with a negative amount in his bank account, motivated by continued financial hardship throughout his life. He started learning about real estate investing. The first 2 years, he learned everything he could. By the age of 22, he did his first deal. 2 years it took you to do your first deal. By the age of 23, he had 83 rentals, the exponential curve. Oh man, I'm so excited to dive into that. And along with having raised millions of dollars in capital, he's also, he's also having done a variety of different deals and strategies by the age of 26. Daniel is founded MIOT Partners Capital, at a core satellite fund that has introduced the equities fund management model into the real estate space for the first time. And and if I continue to read all his achievements and all the things that he's done,
you don't have to, man. Right, that's not what this podcast is about. It's not about the achievement, right? It's about who you are at the core.
Exactly, man. So welcome, man. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, man. I'm excited. Love your story, by the way.
Thank you, man. So let's dive a little bit into yours. So the first thing that I do with my guests is that I tell them to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
Perfect. So I started out obviously as an immigrant to the United States at age 5, and there was a story that I'll share in there that changed my life, right? That I witnessed and I experienced when I was 6 years old. Long story short, fast forward to me growing up as an immigrant, very impoverished, like the bio says. At age 19, 20, I had negative $187.65 in my bank account, decided to do something about it. Liked real estate because I read an article when I was 17 on Forbes magazine that says that out of the top 1% of people in the world, 87% of those people, or 86 or 84, whatever, right? Whatever that number is, made their money by investing in real estate. So I wanted to do that because I knew ever since I was a kid, I was meant for big things. And if you want to do big things in this world, you got to have a decent bank account. You got to have some resources, whether they're yours or whether they're somebody else's. And so 23 years old, had $8 to $10 million worth of real estate, as you heard, and realized that all that meant nothing. And now I'm on this journey the last 3 to 4 years of what it means to, I guess I'll use your terminology, be a modern gentleman, I guess. And that's what we're going to talk about the next 30, 45 minutes or so, is the journey that I've been on the last 3, 4 years.
Awesome, man. That's great. So yeah, right. A lot of so basically you found yourself climbing a mountain, and then when you got to the top, you realized that holy shit, that actually this is not what I thought it would be. Was that the case?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, as much as many people who listen to this podcast is going to hate the fact that I'm saying this, but it is really easy to make money in 2022.
Yeah.
It's like surprisingly money, like easy, like as long as you try and you have certain level of intellect, and then you pay attention to what's happening in this world, it's actually not hard to make money at all. I say it's very hard for self-centered people to make money, and I'll tell you why in a second. But it's very difficult. So I got to a point where I was living the quote unquote dream, right? I remember I was 23 years old. I was single at the time. I had everything the man could want. I had money. I was driving a nice Mercedes Benz, literally being 23 years old. I had my own place, had a 4-bedroom house, that was on a golf course. And I had time to do whatever I wanted. Like literally me and my friends, we'd play basketball from midnight to 3 a.m. And, I got to wake up at 9 or 10 and work on my business for, 7, 8 hours or 9 hours, 10 hours, right? Just because I loved it. And I had the dream, right? Like I had the absolute apex of what a 16 or 17-year-old boy would want, young, rich, have time to do whatever I want, great friends, able to, be with any woman that he want. Like, it was neat. And I got to travel a lot too, so I traveled even at age 23, I traveled 3-4 days out of the week to different cities teaching real estate investing. And so life was great, it was fantastic. But as I said, as I told you, Alex, the last 3-4 years, I've been on this journey of, so I'll use your terminology. So in the back, you said SHF, right? So that's success, happiness, and fulfillment. I realized that a lot of times you can't be happy and be fulfilled at the same time. And that's, the moment I realized that was, when I was 23, I realized that happiness for a true modern gentleman, or in my case, for a true follower of Jesus, I cannot experience happiness as the goal. And that I made it my mission at that point is for me to be happy as the goal actually omitted and actually prevented and hindered from a lot of fulfillment happening, from a lot of other people in my life benefiting, and actually from my growth. The goal typically, Alex, for the entrepreneur is to have that big house, nice car, be able to go on, 5 vacations, 6 vacations, or however many vacations you want a year, have that financial freedom, and maybe, get to a point where you're able to help other people. That's the goal for many people. That's the goal. That's what people would define as happiness, or have that one person that you love and cherish every single day, yada, 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 right? But for me, that's not my goal. At today, at age 27, as I stand before you today with all the things that I've experienced, been through, and learned from my journey and walking with Jesus and, following God, I've realized that happiness for me is not the goal. It's actually other things. So excited to dive into what that means the rest of the time that we have here.
Yeah. What does that mean, man? Yeah, for sure. I want to know.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you're happy, so I guess I'll start with this story. It starts in the back. So I remember when I was 6 years old, my parents and I, along with my older brother, when we first immigrated to this country, we lived in this very janky studio apartment. We lived next to what's known as, let's call it a gentleman's entertainment center, in case you have any listeners that might be under the age of 18, And
Yeah.
so we lived in an apartment. Our dining room doubled as our kitchen, our living room, and my parents' bedroom. It was one of those apartments when you flickered the light on, the cockroaches would all disappear to the sides of the walls.
Yeah.
And it was unique, right? We didn't have a bed at the time. My brother and I slept in sleeping bags that we brought over from Korea on the floor. I loved going to school because it meant that I got to eat, and I can dive into a lot of different stories there on what life was like for us when we first came. But I remember I was 6 years old. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning. And for some reason, when I was a kid, I had a lot of trouble sleeping, And so I remember I was looking out the window, and I'm looking at this gentleman's entertainment center. and I'm seeing things that I've never seen before as a kid, and there's one night where I looked in particular, I saw this guy who was probably in his mid 40s, and he's stumbling out of this gentleman's entertainment center. The door swings wide open and he's just kind of stumbling out, losing his balance. And, he got into his car, into the driver's seat, by the way, and he was wearing a very nice suit. He was wearing a suit and, look, when you're 6 years old, you don't know the difference between Louis Vuitton or, a suit that you got from Kohl's. But I was, smart enough and, old enough at that point to know that something costs a lot.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, you don't have to know the brand, but you can tell something's expensive when you look at it, and I could tell this suit was really expensive, the suit that he was wearing. And then I saw with the watch that he was wearing, and it was a really, really nice watch. It probably had the word Rolex on it. And then he got into his car, and I still remember the brand of the car. He drove a very nice Lexus, and I saw him, driving, and he's swerving everywhere, right? And the disappointing part for me, the most let down part for me, was the fact that when I saw his finger, it had a ring on it, had a wedding ring on it. And so I see this guy driving away, and then I turn literally 90 degrees to my left, and I see another man who, happens to be my father. And this guy is the most generous guy you can ever meet. The type of guy who, even if it was the last shirt that he had, he would give the shirt off his back to help somebody else. He loved my mother very, very much. He was loyal to her. He was, committed to her and devoted to her. This is a guy who was very God-fearing, put God first, put me and my brother first before himself. It was just the ideal man, the kind of the guy that you want your son to grow up to be, but he had no money, right? We were broke, our family. And then I started asking myself, the question is, what would the world look like if my dad, right, if we merged those two? What would the world look like if my dad had that type of, had his resources, because by the way, look, that guy, if he's self-made anyways, like he knows something that my dad doesn't, right? Like let's stop pretending like we live in a world where money doesn't matter, which by the way, the same skill set that allows guys like me and you to make $1 million a year or $10 million a year is the same skill set where 5,000 years ago, this was the guy that was smart enough to build the trap, to capture the animal, to be able to feed the village. That's the same thing. Women, especially from the perspective of women, they see it as the same skill, which by the way, if you ever, wonder, why do women admire men with big muscles? Why is that? And look, I'm skinny. I'm 5'9", 155 pounds, but why is that? Why is it that women admire men with big muscles? It's because, well, that, muscle alludes to a skill set that was very valuable 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. It's because I believe that, although there is not one generic definition of what a modern gentleman is, there are some universal concepts that make a man a man. For example, obviously biology, right? And, do you have the whatever chromosomes that, it's basic biology. Although, we live in a world today where people try to defute that, right? But at the same time, I believe that one of the characteristics of being a man is that there should be a sense of security that people feel when they're around you, right? When people are around you, there should be, when for women, it should be the ability for you to be, to provide.
Yeah.
You have the ability and the resources to define yourself as a man of provision. And not only that, but, if you're another dude, right, do you feel secure in ways where, hey, like, this is my pack, like I'm part of this crew, which by the way is absolutely biological, like we're meant to live in community, right? And whether you want to read it in the Quran, whether you want to read it in the Bible, even my relationship with Jesus Christ, like even just sheer biology and human evolution, we are meant to live in tribes, in community. We are meant to be with one another. So that's another aspect of what it means to be a man. But, ever since 6 years old, I thought of that question, and this is what reverts and leads me to the journey that I've been on of what it means to not pursue happiness anymore. But, for me, what would it look like? That's the question I had in mind at 6 years old. What it means to have my dad's heart, but have that guy's mind, right? In terms of his ability to produce, his ability to create resources. How different would the world look?
So what have you found? Tell me, what have you found? I'm so interested, man. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So for me, I'll lead that into another story. So my stories kind of lead to one another. So I remember when I was 20 years old, I was extremely frustrated. Actually, I think I was 21. I was extremely frustrated.
At 21?
At 21, yeah. So I was your age, right? So I was extremely frustrated because at the time I had been learning about investing and real estate and entrepreneurship and business for 3 years. And by the way, when I say learning, it's not like everybody else. I would get up at a very early, very, very early hour, sometimes 6 a.m., which for you is not early at all because you wake up at 4 a.m., but I wouldn't go to sleep until, 1 a.m. I'm a night owl, right? So I get all my best work done, usually between 10 p.m. to 1. So even all my books I've written, all the stuff, the content that I produce, I usually plan it and write it all between the hours of 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. So I would study my butt off, whether it was, whatever, it was 10 hours a day, right? That I was studying my butt off, learning, and I got nowhere, like absolutely nowhere. And, in my moments of frustration, I go to, in my opinion, the wisest person that ever lived, which was Jesus Christ, and, I went to God and I went to, what believers call the Holy Spirit. And I went to the Holy Spirit and I asked, God, why am I not succeeding? Why am I not making money? Why am I not wearing the fancy suit, driving the nice Lexus, hopefully not stumbling out of a gentleman's entertainment center? Like, why is that not happening to me? And so at that point, Jesus pointed me towards a story. And there's a story in the Bible. It's located in a chapter called John chapter 17. And in this story, Jesus and his students are walking.
Sorry. So
no,
you connected with God by reading the Bible?
I did.
Okay.
So I connect with God by talking to him, right?
Okay.
So most people make this whole relationship with God super complicated, right? They think they have to go to a church and they think they have to do this and say these prayers and eat this and not eat that. Listen, for me, I don't know how you guys all connect with God. I just simply talk to him. Right. I just go, hey, what's up, God? How you doing? Like even this morning, man, when I was driving in the office, I was like, hey, I got this podcast thing with Alex. Is there anything that you want me to tell him and his audience and use there? Like, hey, I feel this way, God. The way I have intimacy with my friends and with my wife, which is honesty and an honest, hard conversation, and then having the desire and the heart to know that person truly and see their heart. That's how I connect with God.
That's amazing, man. That was some bombs right there. Like for everyone out there, like wanting to make money. There you go, right?
Sure. And by the way, it's not even just with money, man. If you want to live a successful, fulfilled life, and which, by the way, I have this theory that God actually doesn't care or not whether we're happy. That's a theory that I've actually proven time and time again, but I truly do believe that. I'll tell you why here in a second. But so I connected with God. He said, hey, go to John chapter 17 and let's read this together. And so I don't know if it's John. I have my Bible here in front of me. I could tell you right now. But and by the way, I had this Bible now for 12 years. I think everyone should have something like that that's consistent in their life that they always can go back to. But so in this story, whether it's John chapter 17 or 70, whatever, it's actually not 17. My bad. Now it's gonna bother me. Now I just gotta get it. Well, either way, okay. So it's in John chapter 13. My bad. So the story is Jesus and the students are walking into this room. They're preparing for this big feast, or it's called the Passover feast. But they're walking into this big feast. And in the middle of Jesus walking into the room, the story says that Jesus felt this power, right? He felt like he had this authority. And in that moment, he was the most powerful being in the universe, right? And then the scripture actually says that he knew that he had come from God, was returning to God, and that he had put all things under his authority, that the Father had put all things under his authority. So imagine being more powerful than Iron Man, Captain America, Thanos, right? Like this guy had it all, man. Like he was the most powerful human being, right? So what's really interesting is, by the way, I have this theory where you can tell the true colors of a man when either they have nothing or when they have everything, right? Like those are two right there. Like it's the same thing with science, right? Like if you really want to test a substance, you don't put it in room temperature. You don't put it in 60, 70 degrees. You either put it in like negative 50 degrees freezing weather, or you put it at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, like whatever you do. It's the same thing with human nature. You discover the true nature of a man or a woman based on extreme greatness or extreme poorness or extreme, negativity or anguish, right? So there he is, right? So Jesus at the top of the hill, as high as you can get on top of any mountain you could possibly imagine. And what's interesting is what he does next, right? Because there you describe and you see, right? This is where you truly see his true colors. And the scripture says, so, right, like SO, like cause and effect, he begins to bring out a water basin, of water. He begins to remove his outer clothing, and he begins to wash the feet of his disciples. And for those that don't know, historically speaking, washing of the feet was actually the task that was reserved for the lowest ranking slave at the time. right? So not even the servants, but the slaves. The slaves did this. So if you're the lowest ranking slave at the time, this is what you did. You washed the feet, mainly because they didn't have shoes, right? They had sandals. And typically they stepped in, poop, they stepped in dirt, they stepped in muddy waters. The feet typically at the time were very dirty. And so by Jesus doing this, it exemplified his true humility. So at the time of me reading this, I connect with the Holy Spirit again. And as clear as I can speak to you and you can speak to me, God spoke to me and it says, Daniel, your problem, the reason why you haven't made any money or haven't found any success is your problem is that every single room you walk out of, the people's feet are still dirty. And for me, that's what it means to combine what I saw at age 6. You combine the intellect of that man who stumbled out of the Gentleman's Entertainment Center, and you combine that with the heart that my dad had to help his fellow man. Is you combine the two and you use the intellect and the resources and the smarts and the knowledge and currency that you have, which, by the way, I define currency as 4 things: money, time, knowledge, and network, not just money. Because you can do a heck of a lot more with the time, knowledge, and the relationships than you can do with the money. Actually, you use those other 3 things to make the money, but you can do a lot more than having $1 billion, in my opinion, right? So you use those currencies to then help your other man, to wash the feet of the people next to you. That's what you do. So that's what I did. The byproduct of that story of me having that realization was I got a notepad out. And by the way, I think every man in here should journal. I love to journal. And I'm the last guy that wants to journal, by the way. I want to be the guy that's like, who cares about your feelings or your like, I want to go make $1 million today, right? Like, that's the type of guy. But I got a notepad out very similar to what I got right here. And at the time, I belonged to a couple different networking events I've met on a weekly basis, which I think every true man that wants to be a successful entrepreneur, you should have some type of weekly rhythm where you meet with people, you mastermind. I don't know if you saw the Mr. Beast podcast with Joe Rogan, but this guy literally, like, for every single day met with 5 people. And he says, if I can make 20 mistakes and each person can make 20 mistakes in 1 year, it's great, because if I learn from those guys, it means I made 100 mistakes that year and I saved myself 4 years. I love that concept. So what I did is I got a notepad out, and I belonged to a couple of real estate investing networking events. And there was about 600 people total that I would meet with every single week, right? In a group, not one-on-one, but in a group. And so what I did is I got in this habit and I asked God, I said, hey, God, how do I wash people's feet? I can't walk around with, like disinfectants and, Lysol and, wash people's feet. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Go to jail. So God says, very simple, get out a sheet of paper or a notepad like this, grab a pen, and I want you to ask every single one of these individuals that you see on a weekly basis, hey, what is the greatest obstacle you have in your business right now? Right? Ask that question. So I did. I spent about 2 months, right, asking every single person. And I think I still have the notepad around here somewhere, but it was pages upon pages upon pages. And what I did is I asked them, I got their full name and I got their email address, and I wrote down right next to it what their biggest obstacle was. And so here's what I got. Here's what I found, right? What I found is that 60-70% of majority of the people, and keep in mind, these are all real estate investors and entrepreneurs, right? Every single one of their, the 60-70% people said, hey, I got great deals, but I need money to be able to do those deals, right? I need capital to be able to execute on those deals. Okay, great. That's 60-70%, right? 20-30% said, oh, I don't know enough. I don't know enough, in my real estate knowledge to be able to whatever. And then there was about 5-10% of people who says, hey, I got the money, but I just don't have the time or the knowledge to be able to do these deals, and a lot of them were like, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, I'm an anesthesiologist, I'm a corporate executive, and I make $750,000 a year. My CPA is telling me I got to get involved with some real estate, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know, yada, yada, yada. So I did the natural thing. I didn't charge anything, by the way. Right. And I said, hey, look, I'm a really smart guy. Like, I know how to analyze real estate deals. I've been working on it the last 3 years. And I went to the people who had the money. I said, what if I got all these people, these 60-70% of people who had the deals, who had the knowledge, who could do all these things for you? What if I vetted these deals for you? And I'd bring you the vetted deals. That way you don't have to spend your time going through all these people, yada, yada, yada. And the doctors and the high net worth, they were like, oh my gosh, that'd be fantastic. That'd be great. So that's what I started doing. I started vetting these deals and I started connecting these individuals. I started going, hey, John, I want you to meet Ed. Ed's got a fantastic deal that he's working on. John, I think you'd be a great fit for Ed. have fun, you too. And for the people who are the 20, 30% who felt like they didn't know enough, I started a little mastermind group where every single Thursday between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. I would teach. So every Thursday I teach for 4 hours, sometimes we go till 3 a.m. in the morning. And a lot of these guys, they had jobs, like they had to wake up at 6 a.m. for, but they still did it, because they're like, man, like we love what you teach. You're teaching a lot of really good things. And, this is awesome. We want to keep coming back. So I would teach there, a form of mastermind. I'd have 50, 60 people that I teach every single week. And I continue to connect these individuals. And one day, one of the individuals I was doing the deals called me up and said, Daniel, I want to thank you for introducing me to Jeff, or whoever his name was at the time. I want to give you 20% of my deal for doing that. And I didn't say no. I said, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But what it did for me is it allowed me to learn real estate and doing deals by being a partner, by actually doing it. And which, by the way, a lot of people ask me like, Daniel, can I work for you for free? I'll do anything you want, just whatever. The very important thing is, number one, as an entrepreneur, the question you got to ask yourself is, what do I bring to the table? I think every single successful entrepreneur has to ask that question. As a matter of fact, there's 3 questions I believe that every entrepreneur, does not matter if you're starting out, or it doesn't matter if you're 5 years in, 15 years in, right? And by the way, even with us, right, my organization, between my brother and I, we've got 40 something employees, we still ask that question every single day to always pivot our offer. And those 3 questions are, number 1 is, who is my ideal client? Who is the ideal person that I want working with me? Who is the perfect person working with me? And even people in real estate, because I offer a real estate coaching service, I ask them, you want to raise money? Fantastic. You want to attract passive investors? Fantastic. Describe to me in a full page, right? Like spend 15 minutes, describe to me every single detail of your ideal investor. Who is your ideal client? Are they a doctor? Are they a business owner? Do they need tax write-offs? Do they need this? Whatever. So that's number 1. Who is your ideal client? Number 2, what is your grand slam offer? As in, what is your offer that sets you apart from every single competitor that's in your business, that's in your industry right now? Right. So I'll tell you my grand slam offer. So when people work with me in terms of the real estate, because I'm a syndicator, right? I take, I syndicate other people's capital and I track them into doing deals and where they get a majority of the profit. My grand slam offer was, well, first and foremost, my ideal client back then was a doctor who made $650,000, right? Like, or more, right? That was my ideal client. My grand slam offer, and this is still my grand slam offer to this day because it works so well, is I give my investors 100% of all tax benefits that any deal offers, right? And by the way, which high net worth guys, like the real killers that you want to work with,
You appreciate that, yeah.
They love taxes. They love tax benefits, right? They don't love taxes. They love tax benefits. So what's your grand slam offer? What is the thing that's going to set you apart? What is that thing where people go, oh my gosh, I can't resist that offer, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. You can apply that concept, right? So it's, who's your ideal client? What's your grand slam offer? And number 3, what is the market telling you, right? I love that 3rd question. What is the market telling you to do? So for example, even in my real estate game, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the real estate market right now. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to tell you that this podcast has completely changed my life in ways that you could never imagine, and I would like the same for you. Look, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and the fastest way for you to level yourself up in every area of your life is for you to connect with people who are where you want to be, build relationships with them, and connect with them. The best way for you to do that right now in the digital age is for you to start your own podcast. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a free training that you can get free access to. It's called the 30-day Net Worth Skyrocketing 3-step podcast cloak track framework. And it's going to show you how you can start and automate everything in your podcast, from finding your ideal guest, getting them on an interview with you, and creating an automated content machine in just 30 days. By executing on this free training, you're going to be able to connect with high-level people, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem, in just 30 days with less than 1 to 2 hours per week, so that you can increase your net worth, your authority, your trust, your client acquisition ability, and your opportunity. So there's a special link for this free training in the description of this video. Thank you for watching and tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
If you own a health and fitness company, like I met an entrepreneur yesterday. I was helping her out with her business. She's extremely smart. So she got the whole, what is the market telling you part down? Like she got it down, man. So her business, but get this, her business is you can rent flowers from her for a wedding. That's her business.
Rent.
I thought that was, yeah, you can rent flowers, which
Okay.
I thought was absolutely genius, because I remember even when I got married, I got married about 3 years ago to my wife, Lisa. I remember we had to buy the flowers, and, our wedding, by the way, was only like 20, 30 people. We didn't want a whole lot of people there. Right. So it was only 20, 30 people, but the flowers were the most expensive thing, because the church that I was attending, like, they let me use the facility for free. The pastor was a very good friend of mine who officiated our wedding. Like, aside from the reception, the food, because I took everyone to a Brazilian steakhouse. Like, yo, look, weddings, you usually don't eat much. This wedding, you're gonna pig out, and you're gonna get the best food you ever had in your life, right? So aside from the food, the flowers were the most expensive thing, and we had to buy the flowers like everybody else. And so, literally, this woman had come up with an idea. It was like, hey, look, you only need flowers for that one day. Just rent them out at 25% of the cost. And she's crushing it. I think she went from doing like 0 to 6 figures a month now, from like a span of 3 months. Like, I mean, like, but that's the power of really spending time and going into the details on what is the market telling you? What do the people need? I did that in the form of asking 600 people, what's your greatest obstacle in your business? Right. I studied the market. I studied what people want. I'll share with you a quote that my business mentor shared with me when I was 18 years old that completely changed my life. He goes, Daniel, in a room full of thirsty people, be the water. Right. Like, that's what he says. Like he says entrepreneur. And by the way, he's a guy who at one point owned $1.6 billion worth of real estate.
Yeah.
Had a massive company. Like, this guy was he was nice, like, he was really good at what he did, and he says, Daniel, it's really simple. Like, if anything, the entrepreneurs don't succeed because they make things too complicated. Like, most people, like 95% of people I've come across, and by the way, it's true. Like, I'm a coach, right? I've flew across the country, trained hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs. Like, I can tell you for a fact that is true. Two things as to why most people don't succeed. Number one is because that's exactly it. They don't pay attention to the market. They make things too complicated. They don't realize that people's problems can actually be solved with a very simple answer. And number two, people lack follow through. So they get going for a little bit, they do really well, and then they don't know how to capitalize on that opportunity, right? Which is why I'm a big advocate of hiring a coach, right? So you said you did 150 grand in self-development in your journey. That's awesome, man. Like, same. You know what I mean? Like, I think my brother and I, we dropped close to 100 grand just this year alone in 2022. It's only been 3 months. But so that's what we do. We just dropped 50 grand on, there was a guy named Russell Brunson. I'm sure a lot of people know him, but we just dropped 50 grand on his inner circle coaching. We got to spend a whole week with him in Cancun, 2 weeks ago, so like, that's the type of level, right? Like, where you kind of have to up your game. But that's what my mentor told me. He says, in a room full of thirsty people, have a glass of water, or you could replace that with anything, right? Like, the original quote that he told me was, in a room full of people who have cigarettes, have a lighter. That's what he told me. That was the original quote, right? But I just like to use the water, right? Because this is better imagery. But it's very true, right? It's extremely true. So I didn't mean to ramble, but hopefully a lot of people got a good amount of golden nuggets from that.
No, man, I loved it. And so let's see. So you mentioned, like, why the reason most people are not successful is because they don't take time to see what the market wants, right? And they lack follow through. Earlier, you said, like, another of the reasons why people don't make money is because of self-centeredness.
Yeah.
So, like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something very controversial, right? So
Okay.
I don't set goals. I don't believe in goals. I don't believe in goal setting. I also don't believe in the word legacy. So I was talking with a friend of mine. A lot of you guys may know him. He's very popular amongst the young. So his name is Alex Hormozy. I don't want to like name drop or anything like that, but Alex is a friend of mine. I'm actually planning on going to see him in Vegas in a couple of weeks or so. But him and I are having this conversation about the word legacy. And I love Alex because his story has a lot to do with mine, where we just happen to have a skill set that made us very successful at a very early age.
Which was?
I think he became I don't know when he told me he became a millionaire, but I know I hit the $1 million mark when I was 23 years old, right? And for us, we were just very smart. And I think the skill set that him and I would kind of describe is we knew very early on how to start and scale something. And not only that, but we had the skill set of understanding what people wanted and then giving it to them. Like him and I were I think curiosity is the trait that you're looking for, is the answer that you're looking for. Him and I were both very curious. And most curious people are not action takers. And most action takers are not curious people. You gotta have to have a balance. You have to be both, where you're humble enough to ask people, like, what are you doing? What are you not doing? Always be learning. But at the same time, you have to be confident enough to know that that's the right path to step on. That's the right route to go, and be able to cast a vision and lead other people to do it. Right. So him and I were having this conversation about the word legacy. And I told him, like, look, man, I'm not a goal setter. Right. He's like, dude, me too. Like, I don't set goals. Matter of fact, I hate it when people say the word legacy. Right. And him and I kind of, went on this little thing there where the conclusion of that conversation was, it's so silly how people say the word legacy, like, oh, I want to build my legacy, whatever. When 300, 400 years from now, people will probably never know who we are. Like if you think about the most influential people, like a Grant Cardone, right? So I know Grant. He's a good dude, man. Nicest person I've ever interviewed. We actually we actually almost started a business together. But so even like a Grant Cardone, that guy's huge. Would you agree? Like he's massive, right? 10x conference, right? Sorry, you were going to say something.
I'm going to the 10x conference right now this weekend.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
10x conference, largest business conference in the world, right? Like super proud of what him and Jared and all of the team at Cardone, like super proud of what they did. He's a big dude. He's got like 4 million Instagram followers, right? Like it's incredible. The reality is, even Grant would probably say the same thing if he was here with us right now. Like 400 or 500 years later, no one's gonna know who Grant Cardone is. Like no one's gonna know who Tony Robbins is. 400 or 500. Like the only people bro, like tell me, who do you know 500 years ago that made an impact?
No one. Yeah, no one, man.
No one, right?
Probably, like the names
okay,
that go
Jesus,
around, like Rockefeller.
Right, Rockefeller. Okay, great. Right, but the list is extremely small, right? Like extremely small. So him and I were having that conversation. How it's just silly. It's silly to build your entire business off of the word legacy, because like first and foremost, 300, 400, probably not even 100 years from now, 50 years, like after you're gone, no one's going to know who you are. But him and I were also kind of jiving on this conversation, how the word legacy is actually in its nature very selfish, because you're thinking about what's best for you, right? And like that's the mindset of most entrepreneurs, is what is best for me? How can I find my ideal spouse? How can I have my goals met? How can I get my, like it's all my, me, right? And the big epiphany that I had at 23 or 20, even starting back to the story, is if you want to be a fantastic leader, if you want to be a fantastic businessman, entrepreneur, influencer, whatever, if you truly want to be that in its truest nature, you cannot think about legacy. You cannot be goal-oriented. I consider Jesus to be the greatest leader that ever lived, but he was extremely others focused, to the point where he would sacrifice himself and be tortured and be killed on a cross for the sake of humanity. And even in his most powerful moments, decided to bring out a basin of water and wash the feet of his disciples and do the most humiliating thing. Now, don't get me wrong, Jesus was all about personal development, right? If you look in scripture, there are many times where he says, then he went off, right? He went off to the mountainside to be alone with his Father, right? Like he took time for himself. He set healthy boundaries, right? But it's ironic because most people don't set healthy boundaries, but they're at the same time, when it comes to self-orientation, they're very self-oriented. And then when it comes to others, it's the opposite. And then Jesus flipped that, right? He says for him, he set healthy boundaries and, made himself develop and spent a lot of alone time and learned actually how to rest, which in my opinion, a lot of young entrepreneurs do not know how to do. They do not know how to truly rest. They know how to relax. Like they know how to, like not do anything, but they don't know what it means to truly rest, which I'm still learning, by the way, right? But the greatest leaders of all time, like they were not self-oriented, not in the fashion of getting their goals met. They weren't goal-oriented, actually. So I'll finish my little rant with this, right? So my mentor, when I was 23 years old, right before I bought it, in 2017, I went on this kick where I bought an apartment a month. Like I was on a roll, man. And my mentor, January 1st, I remember I told my mentor, hey, I want 8 rental doors this year. If I can get 8 rental units this year, that's a great year. I would love that. That's fantastic. And then my mentor said, Daniel, don't set goals, set standards and expectations. And I remember I read this article by Michael Phelps, right, the most decorated Olympian of all time. And the interview asked Michael, why are you the most decorated Olympian of all time? Not even just in swimming, but just of all, like, he's my argument for like top 3 greatest athlete of all time, right? Like why, what makes you different? What separates you from the rest? And he goes, yeah, I'll tell you. And he goes, it's because for the swimmer from Italy or from Australia or from whatever. It's because all these other swimmers I compete with, their best day is my standard. So like if they have a phenomenal training day where like, hey, 1 out of every 10 is a really good training day, that one training day that they have that's 1 out of 10, I set that as a standard, as the minimum for myself, right? So even with rest and recovery, I set their best rest and recovery periods, I set that as the minimum for myself, as the standard. So that's what I did. I set myself standards and expectations of myself. And there's 5 things that I did every single day, no matter what, right? Because a lot of times when you set a goal and you go, I'm going to reach for that, I'm going to move towards that, it's a lot easier for you to abandon your ambition, right? The proof is in the pudding. It's in the numbers. How many people who set New Year's, by the way, I guarantee you 90% of people who set New Year's resolutions on January 1st, 2022, right now, gone. Yeah. Same thing with business, right? Well, it was a statistic like within 3 years, 92 something percent of businesses fail, right? Why is that? Well, it's because most people are told to set goals. I think that's dog crap. Instead set yourself standards and expectations, things that you are accountable to do every single day. So okay. I picked 5 things, and those 5 things I sat down in a very dark room. It was very ominous. I didn't like candles or anything. But I sat myself in a very dark room. I had a sheet of paper, and I said, okay, let me reverse engineer the goal that I have of getting 8 units, and let me figure out what's the highest and most efficient action step for me to reach that goal, regardless of time. I don't care if it's 5 months, 5 days, 5 years, 50 years, doesn't matter. I just want to figure out the most efficient action step for me to do every single day. And after 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I worked on it a lot, right? I brought them to my mentors. Hey, what do you think? What would you do differently? What would you change? Right. And then I got back, and it was this period of 2 weeks where I was just experimenting. I was figuring out what is my highest and most efficient action steps. And, I brought them to my mentor. My mentor made changes. I went back, create another draft. Okay, what do you think now? More changes. Okay, what do you think now? To the point where after 2 weeks, I have my 5 most highest efficient action steps, the thing that I had to be doing every single day at that time. And the result of me doing that every single day was by the end of the year, I had 87 rental doors.
Holy shit. So 10 times more.
Literally 10x, right?
What were those action steps?
Yeah, very easy. So those 5 action steps, for one of them was reach out to a new investor every single day. So 2 of those things had to do with raising capital and syndicating capital, because for me, that was very valuable at the time, right? One of them was finding deals. So what I used to do is I used to drive around 3-4 hours every single week, but there was an action step that I could do every single day with that. And then I used to see these for rent signs, right? That was hanging out. And I used to take a picture, and I used to call those every single day to get leads, to see if sellers were interested in selling their property and whatnot, And then another action step was expanding my team. I needed a maintenance guy, I needed a broker, a property manager. And that was, and then another thing was I had to do with personal development, making sure I learned this and learned that. And, and I consulted with my mentor and make sure what I was learning at this point in my career was important. Right. So I'll be very honest, right? I think for a lot of young entrepreneurs, I think leadership isn't something that they should be learning quite yet. Because a lot of times, right, for me, right, if you first become the technical expert, if you first become good at if Alex becomes the best at being Alex, like you will infinitely be significantly better to learn how to lead. So Jesus uses a story of how he says, he uses this metaphor. He goes, you don't pour old wine into new wineskin because you're going to ruin the wine. Instead of what you do is you get a new wineskin and then you pour the new wine in. So it's the same thing with individuals, right? A lot of us, we experience trauma, brokenness, we experience a lot of these things growing up 0 to 18, and we become old wineskin. And when we receive information on how to lead other people, it's new wine. And because the new wine is entering the old wineskin, the new wine gets ruined and becomes disoriented and it gets distorted and it becomes changed and altered. And all of a sudden that altered information that we pass on to other individuals hurts them as well. So I tell people all the time, it's like, look, focus on being the best version of you can possibly be, and then learn about leadership. And then you'll actually be surprised at how easy and how much easier leadership becomes. So for example, I focused on learning how to lead starting about 2 years ago, right? So when I was late 25, I asked God, hey, you're the greatest leader that has ever lived. Jesus, you're the greatest leader that I ever walked this earth. Please teach me about leadership. And the first thing that he says was,
holy shit, man. He's also the best salesperson, the best marketer, the best of everything, man.
100%. 100%. Dude, at the end of the day, my only responsibility is not to be the best businessman. It's not to be the best leader. It's not to be the best husband. It's just simply follow Jesus. That's it for me, for my life.
That's crazy, man.
Like that's the
man.
only responsibility that I have. So I asked Jesus, like, hey man, like, teach me to be the best leader. And he tells me, he goes, Daniel, you want me to teach you to be the best leader? Be a follower of mine. By following me, you will learn how to lead. Right. And I said, wow, fantastic. So I did. Right. So Jesus has been teaching me how to be the best leader for 2 years now. And what I've learned has been tremendous, which, by the way, I'd love to share what I've learned. Maybe I can come back. I'd be willing to come back. This is good stuff, man. But that's what I've learned.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Man, I have 5 questions, which, we have 4 minutes to get through. And the first one is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could? Not change anything or redo your life, just give your 20-year-old self some advice. What would that be?
Sure. I would give that kid a hug. I wouldn't say anything. I would just say, you know what? I just hug that guy and just say, hey, look, just come here, bring it in, Now I wouldn't tell him anything.
That's fucking awesome. Okay, cool. The mindset. So what is a mindset shift that you've had that you think has contributed to your success?
The mindset shift that I had, the mindset shift that I had is be intentional. Cool. Right? With whatever you do, be present with people, be coachable, focus on learning. Here's the most, I think is really valuable to me. Have somebody that you meet with on a weekly basis who is about 15 years ahead of you, who has no problem telling you that you're being an asshole if you're being an asshole. I think that's really key. But have that person have your best interest in mind. Like, have them genuinely love who you are as a person. Cool. Like, there should be a genuine relationship there. There's no transaction involved. Which, by the way, is really hard. Like, most people wear a mask, and most people are very transactional in their relationships. Like, dude, I'm willing to come back to your podcast. I'll do 3 more episodes if you want. And like I've done podcasts where each episode has 2 million listens or 1 million listens. I've done those podcasts. I still do. But even with like, for me, like, dude, I don't care how many people listen to one particular episode. Like, I'm just gonna, my standard is I give 110% every single episode I do.
Thanks, man. I felt it. Yeah. The next question is mindset map. So what is like a, I don't know, strategy, piece of advice, tactic, skill to like help people get clarity, have clarity in their life? I think I know what you're gonna say.
Sure. Learn to rest.
Cool. Oh, okay, cool.
Like, learn to rest. Like, every single phone call, meeting, like, take just 5-10 minutes beforehand and just think. Just get a blank sheet of paper and write down, okay, like, well, how do I want to show up? Whatever, like, how do I want this to go and whatnot. And obviously, my connection to God, right? My relationship with Jesus helps me a lot. Yeah, it helps me a lot. Like, there's one quote that I tell people all the time. Look, when I think back to who I was at age 15, I was an idiot. Like, I was a total idiot. Most people say that, right? When I think back to who I was at age 20, I was an idiot. When I think back to who I was even 2 years ago, I'm an idiot. I'm sure when I'm 32 years old and I look back at my 27-year-old self right now, I'm going to say, man, that kid was an idiot. The whole point is you're an idiot, right? Yeah. So for me, that's why my only responsibility is to follow Jesus, because I know I'm an idiot. But if he can guide my steps and walk up, I know I'm good.
So the next question is motion. What is a habit that you have that you think has contributed to your success?
Yeah, man, great stuff. So it's not more so a habit; it's more of like a lifestyle. I feel like a freaking hippie when I say that. It's a lifestyle, man. But I talk to God constantly. Like, I'm constantly talking to God, like in between meetings, or like even with this podcast, man. Like, I know that he's here with me right now. When I walk into meetings, I live in a way where Jesus is walking ahead of me to those meetings. Like, for me, that's how I live. Right. But I talk to the guy all the time, man. He's at the end of the day, he's not some God who's up there in his throne, ready to smite you or ready to tell you that you did something wrong, or, hey, you watched porn last night? Oh my gosh, give me 50 push-ups. Like, that's not who he is. Right. At the end of the day, he's a loving father who just loves us and cares for us and wants to do things with us and wants to experience intimacy with us and wants for us to be the best versions of who he created us to be. Like, awesome, please live in that truth. Everyone who's listening, please live in the truth that you have a loving father who loves you unconditionally. Even if you mess up, no big deal. He's waiting for you. Just live in that. Live in a place where you're constantly feeling loved. How freeing is that, man? Because here's the thing, for you, especially for you as a husband and a father, right? You got a daughter, you got a wife, right? You cannot give away what you don't have. You can't. So most people, like the reason why most people suck at being a dad or suck at being a husband is because I'll just be honest, because they're not connected to God. Like as ears are created to hear, as eyes are created to see, we, the man of a soul, the soul of a man, right? The soul of a modern gentleman, I'll use your terminology. The soul of a man is engineered to connect with God. Like I truly believe that. And so if I can live in a way where I'm receiving and I'm aware of God's love every single day, I can give it away like it's water. I can give it away to my wife. I can give it away to my brother. I can give it away to my employees, which by the way, helps me become a tremendous leader. When your staff knows that their leader and their boss, their employer loves them and truly wants the best for them, dude, leadership is, forget about it.
Awesome, right? Man. And the last question before, the last question is, what are your thoughts on tracking and measuring and tracking?
Oh, I love it, man. I journal every day and I journal every week. So what I do is every day I journal differently. So I'm not going like, man, my feelings today were blue or green. If you do that, great. I'm not blaming you, right? But for me, the way I journal is every single day I answer the question, what did I do / learn that helps me become a better entrepreneur than I was yesterday or a better leader? And then every Sunday night, my wife holds me accountable to this. Every Sunday night, I write down what are the 3 things or the 2 or 3 things or whatever, 1 thing, 5 things, doesn't matter how much you write, that I absolutely have to get done the next 7 days for me to move the ball forward in my business. I journal like that every day and every week. So what did I learn every single day on a daily basis and every week, what am I going to accomplish the next 7 days to ensure that the ball is being moved forward, to ensure that my business is progressing and growing.
Nice. Awesome, man. So, man, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And like the wisdom that you dropped, man, was insane. I really
thank you.
Appreciate it. Like you made me feel things. And it was probably God, right? And like you were probably his vessel. So yeah, thanks, man. And let's see. Yeah, where can people find more of this stuff that you just dropped here in this podcast, man?
Yeah, so I don't really post a lot on my Instagram. I'm not one of those individuals that like try to gain a huge following. I try to be my authentic self, like every single time, so if people want to reach out to me, I'm usually pretty responsive. My email is daniel@thekwakbrothers.com. Cool. My last name is spelled Kwak and then brothers with an S at the end. My Instagram is the Daniel Kwak. That was the only handle that was available without having to put like some weird underscore or whatever. So it's the Daniel Kwak. That's my Instagram. And I'm actually hosting a retreat later this year. It's to the first week of November. I'm hosting a retreat. I'm planning on having 35 people, but I just got a friend of mine who's a Dr. Doug McKinley, who's a business psychologist. He helps entrepreneurs unlock mental gaps that help them reach the next level.
I want to go.
Perfect. So he's gonna be speaking. I'm gonna give a whole afternoon spiel on real estate and all this stuff. So it's kind of like a real estate entrepreneur / business ownership, retreat, but it's high intensity. It's very intimate, 30 to 35 people. I try to keep things really small. I'm not a big fan of the big conferences because you usually don't get very deep in those,
Yeah.
I like the small retreats where we get super intense and super deep and it's life-changing. That's what I'm a big fan of.
Awesome, man. Well, and so where could I go and subscribe or like sign up or whatever?
Oh yeah. So we haven't created the whole sign up thing yet. So if you want to just reach out to me, DM me, say you're interested,
right, sure.
and
follow up. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for being here, man. Again, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll see you later, man. Thanks.
Yeah. See you, brother.
Bye. Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms